Okay. Good morning, everyone. To the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host, Dan Sissick. I have Karen, Lori, and Catherine here with me. Jason and Samantha are not here. They both have other things that they had going on this week, but they should be back with us next week. And Angel, I don't know if she's just caught up with her kids and whatever, but with that, I will let everybody introduce themselves, and then Catherine has agreed to graciously read for us again, as always. So she does such an awesome and wonderful job, and just flows and emanates from her the way I think it really should sound and feel. So I'll let everybody jump out and say their hello.
Lori Emmons in Denver.
Good morning, I'm Karen Lohoff in Mesa, Arizona.
Good morning, it's Catherine Clement, and let me jump over here to my script page. All right. So we're in chapter 5, and we're in a little section called Guided by the Law of Polarity. One of the most effective ways to raise the vibration of your relationships is to engage the law of polarity. Through this universal principle, you are able to better understand the balance of opposing forces. Instead of matching the energy of others, you merely do the opposite. If others shout, you choose to listen. Since shouting can only occur through shallow breathing, you slow down and calm your breath. When others are tense and rigid, you relax your body. If others complain, you respond with a compliment. Even if you feel dominated by the energy, words, or actions of another, the law of polarity inspires you to back away and give them more time and space so they can be with themselves on a more intimate level. By learning to do the opposite whenever stress, pain, or blame arises, you are holding a sacred space for every heart during life's most critical moments of healing. This also helps you learn that you don't need anyone to act in a certain way in order to feel the harmony, bliss, and joy that life always provides. While it makes sense that a partner is the one who supports you the most and offers you all the love you could ever need, the difference between feeling seen or ignored is more so a reflection of how often you love your own heart. It is common to unknowingly ignore the requests from your own innocent nature while waiting for a partner to treat you better. When this tendency influences you, there are endless ways in which you envision everyone becoming better characters in your life if only they would listen more intently or learn to act differently. When the demands you have in each relationship inspire you to be the one who acts upon them, the law of polarity assists you in finding space to gift yourself and others with the nurturing support and engaged listening that no amount of negotiating with others can ever guarantee. With such a universal law, while such a universal law has the potential to shift relationships into greater depths of intimacy, it is never intended to be used as a way of loving yourself privately while hiding from a relationship you are completely afraid to end. Often, as energetically sensitive souls, we can be more focused on other people's feelings or reactions than following the wisdom of our own inner guidance. There can even be a belief that says, it's not a conscious breakup until they're okay with setting me free. There can be such a fear of hurting another or being the contributing factor to someone else's despair that you unknowingly stay in broken relationships, not seeing how the most loving thing for both hearts is to go your own way. No matter how anyone responds when your highest truth is spoken, each moment of sharing acts as a catalyst of spiritual growth for the evolution of everyone involved. Should I go ahead?
Um, what do you guys think? Do you guys have some thoughts in here, or do you want Catherine to go to the next part? Go ahead, Catherine, and then we can probably cover, because such a small chapter anyway, we can cover the last two together.
Okay. Spiritual codependency. It can be normal for energetically sensitive souls to linger in outdated relationships in an attempt to help others process the pain of loss. No matter how attached you are to another person or how deeply that person clings to you, such a dynamic only invites more toxicity until you are able to walk away and make time for the innocence that calls out for your attention. No matter the time or energy invested in any relationship, the law of polarity allows you to hold sacred space for the healing of any heart without getting lost in spiritual codependency. This frees you from the tendency to stall your own evolution by waiting for others to be okay with the choices that may only feel right for you. Even when a choice that appears so right to you seems to hurt another, this is the humbling nature of life's most profound healing being revealed. Despite how badly you feel for someone else's pain, there is no reason to feel guilty when only gifts of expansion are given. Even when you don't know how to be okay with decisions that others reject, that becomes a life-changing opportunity to follow through with your inner guidance while welcoming codependency as the next one in line to be loved. It is vital to remember you are never turning your back on anyone. You are merely facing in the direction of your highest potential. While it may feel as if you are abandoning someone in their most dire moment of despair, you are being guided by the universe to give proper distance, which for many people is the only way to turn inward and discover their innocence at a greater spiritual level. Through the law of polarity, you come to notice every single character who enters your reality is an animated flashcard of personal growth. Each one helps bring this cosmic principle to life by inspiring you to do the opposite in response to those who lash out or shut down. Each of those personal encounters becomes an invitation to breathe more slowly, speak more softly, and act more graciously as a way of coming into greater harmony with the light of your divinity. This allows you to feel safe in your body, not as a result of personal circumstances, but based on how compassionately you're willing to respond to the situations at hand. It's as if your innocence only understands the world you see based on your responses and reactions to it. Despite how anyone around you chooses to be, the difference between perceiving a life of synchronicity versus a world of endless stress solely depends on how you speak, breathe, and move from one moment to the next.
Okay, and with that, so going back to these last two little sections, guided by the law of polarity and then spiritual codependency. And I like in the very first part of Guided by the Law of Polarity, one of the most effective ways to raise the vibration of your relationships is to engage the law of polarity. Through this universal principle, you are able to better understand the balance of opposing forces. Instead of matching the energy of others, you merely do the opposite. And so, like it said, if others shout, you choose to listen. Since shouting can only occur through shallow breaths, you slow down and calm your breath. When others are tense and rigid, you relax your body. If others complain, you respond with a compliment. And I thought that was kind of interesting because there have been times where I have gotten right back into the vibration of whatever was being put out of, say, like maybe anger or shouting or whatever, and I would kind of shout back. But there have been other times where, and I don't know why, something inside me or something didn't want to, I wanted, for me, and I think it was more for me personally, I was wanting to tone down to a calmer level, so that way maybe I could get the other person to actively try and listen to what I was saying rather than just responding. And so I would like go quiet or not say much or just, listen to what they were saying. And sometimes I feel it's had an effect and made them stop a little bit, but other times I think it just made them even all the more upset. So I don't know what you guys might think on something like that. And if you've tried something like that or done something like that and been able to get it to work, or what came out of it, because sometimes I tried to do some of these things, but sometimes it, especially with one person, it doesn't seem to help. And so kind of sometimes I feel at my wit's end and I'm pulling my hair out trying to actively get the other party to actively really pay attention, listen to what I'm saying rather than, and what I'm trying to get across rather than just responding.
Yeah, that's the whole thing right there, is whether you respond or react. And choosing to respond is so difficult most of the time. There's so many emotions and different opinions and everything affecting the whole situation. And this book is really making it self-aware of the codependency factor, which is what I've been in for like 20 years here, but sometimes you got to stay in the situation because of finances or whatever, and really learning to respond instead of reacting, because I think reacting comes from emotions and personal experiences, and learning to respond and stop and take a breath and think about it before I start opening my yapper. Quite a challenge, I think.
And that's part of what, 'cause I've done that, and especially in one instance that I'm thinking of with a good friend of mine, that there are times where I have reacted, and I get right back and, kind of come back at the same intensity. But there have been other times where I tried to employ what he's saying here, but I almost feel like it to me, it almost seems like in a roundabout way, it inflames it even more. And I sometimes think that this other person thrives on the reaction rather than really listening and understanding where I'm coming from or what I'm saying. And sometimes that can get really trying and really, it gets to be where sometimes I it's almost like, okay, well, I'll just react. And if it's sometimes I feel like I'm beating up against a brick wall, but yet I feel the friendship is worth it. But it just sometimes it's just kind of hard to go from that place of responding rather than reacting.
Yeah, it's super challenging. I have definitely utilized this technique that he talks about. I had to do that as a nurse, because I was just in these situations where babies were dying and families were in such sorrow. And when you're hurting, you tend to lash out in anger and things. And of course, I couldn't respond or react with anger. I had to respond. And so, but as far as that being, I was much better at it when I was a nurse and doing it every day. I'm not as good at it now. Like, I can be pretty hot tempered sometimes. And But I think what Matt is telling us here, or reminding us, is that, we don't have to judge ourselves over that. Like, even though you feel like you tried it and it didn't work or whatever, that the whole point of that situation maybe wasn't necessarily for you to calm that person down and have them listen and understand what you were saying. Maybe it was just for you to respond in the appropriate way. Maybe that's what that whole situation was for, was just to give you the opportunity to respond appropriately and then move on as a soul with that under your belt, as opposed to, quote, fixing or healing that situation. Like, I think we get focused on the wrong things a lot of times. And also, some people really do feed off of energy. And of course, when you're upset and you're animated and your voice is raised, most people pick up on that as being like more energy to feed off of. And some people that have, especially people that have never done any sort of mindset training or had any kind of um, healthy communication with others, they don't know how to respond when somebody doesn't just react back at them. Like, it feels like that person doesn't care about them. Like, they make up all these stories in their head about it. Like, well, if they're not getting mad over this, then they don't care about me, or they think they're better than I am because they can just be calm and right now, and I'm having this fit of anger, or what. People tell themselves all kinds of crazy stuff in their heads to kind of justify wherever they're at in the moment.
I think you bring up a good point, and I had not really put that thought or energy into what you just said. And maybe my one friend, and I know that right now this friend is going through a lot personally, so I know that some of the reaction I'm getting from him is due to other outside influences that I don't have a control over. So, but yet and it may be, and now looking at it, and maybe even going from this point of view, maybe I'm a safe haven, so to speak, for him to release maybe some of that energy that he can't do because of the situation, because it involves family members, and how some of what's happening in his life personally plays out. It's going to affect his family. It really is going to, tremendously. But and I'm maybe now, as I'm really thinking about him, maybe he's trying to not react there, and maybe I'm the outlet, but yet in order to, in a roundabout way, maybe in order to get some of that out of him, he needs the reaction out of me rather than the responding out of me. I don't know, but maybe that's, and I've never looked at it that way, because I know that he doesn't, he shares little bits and pieces when he gets really calm and really, at that point where he's willing to share, but most of the time he doesn't share. But he definitely, throws out. And me being the type of person, I want to try and, as I've said before, I'm a people pleaser. And I want to try and get everybody to a place where they're comfortable or whatever. And sometimes, but then I tend to react sometimes because of my overarching wanting to make sure that everything's okay. And I don't think that helps sometimes. But it's just something in my life lately that just kind of, because there were quite a few years he and I lost touch with each other. And I'll be honest, the years that we were not in touch were kind of blissful. It was kind of nice. I didn't have that, stress of that. But he's a good friend. But at the same point, it comes with that, that double-edged side that you deal with sometimes with people sometimes. So I never looked at it that way. But it's, and maybe going back to where it says, even if you feel dominated by the energy, words, or actions of another, the law of polarity inspires you to back away and give them more time and space so they can be with themselves on a more intimate level. And I'm wondering if, because he's right now saying that he needs to get out of town for a few days to kind of clear out. For me, I'm taking it as he needs to clear out a bunch of energy and a bunch of stuff. And I think when he leaves and goes on his little trips or vacations, because he owns his own business and stuff, that's his way of kind of reclaiming himself, or I don't know the right word, but kind of reconnecting or recharging or something similar to that. So maybe, and by me trying to do the opposite, maybe I'm hopefully helping him to get to that point. So when he does go, he can maybe come back less stressful. Sorry, didn't mean to take up so much, but I'll let other people jump out as I try and think of some more stuff to cover.
I thought that was an excellent point you brought up, that people do need, a friend to vent to, or at least I do, even though I don't utilize it as often as I should, because I don't know, I just have this spiritual judgment against myself about doing that, which I shouldn't, because that's one of the reasons that my body is so messed up as it is because I don't express my emotions well. So, but I think there's a way sometimes to respond to people, where it's kind of like you're sort of reacting with them, but just enough to make them feel comfortable. And then you can kind of slide that calmness in there. In other words, if, it just comes across easier. You can put yourself in their position. Imagine that you're really upset over something and you tell somebody, and they can respond in two ways or several ways, but two of the ways are that they can say, well, just breathe, or remember to breathe, bring it in some kind of woo-woo shit. Or you can say, oh man, that so sucks. Like, I've had that happen to me. I totally get it. And, I found that just breathing really helped me a lot. Like, it's so simple to forget to just breathe. So I think sometimes there's a way to say things where people don't feel alienated, because I know even myself, I get, if I'm in a tiff and one of my spiritual friends throws some kind of woo-woo stuff at me, I just want to tell him to shut up or something. Like, I mean, I get it. I totally get it. So now there was a passage I wanted to go back to. Let me flip over to my script, because this one really popped out for me because of some stuff that I'm dealing with this week. Well, not just this week, but lots of weeks. Where did it go? It is vital to remember you are never turning your back on anyone. You are merely facing in the direction of your highest potential. So I love that paragraph, because sometimes I do feel like I'm abandoning people, or that I didn't, not that I like intentionally abandoned them, but that I didn't fix them. I guess is what it is. And then so that sort of hangs on me or something. And and I love this paragraph because it reminds me, and of course we all know that we are all evolving every day as souls and as humans. And some we learned lessons at different parts of our life, and some of us learn the really hard ones early on, and some people don't learn those lessons until later on or whatever. Like there's no rhyme or reason. So when we are kind of wanting to fix somebody and they're not, and I always say fix somebody with quotation marks around it. You can't see me. But when we're trying to fix somebody and that's not turning out the way that we think it should, again, I think we just have to remind ourselves that the whole purpose of that situation may not have been to fix them, but may have been for us to respond in a way. And then even if we don't respond in what we feel is the right way, then we have to, we start beating ourselves up over that, and we have to remember to forgive ourselves for that too, because we're always we're always trying to do the best that we can. I don't think any of us, most of us don't intentionally set out to hurt another. So if we do hurt them, it wasn't necessarily intentionally, even though we may have known a better way to do it and didn't act in that way. And that's, I guess, where I get real judgmental with myself, because I say, well, you've been studying this stuff your whole life. Like, why don't you get this yet? Why can't you react right or respond right? Or, and I mean, I've got a person in my mind right now that I think, I have honestly said to myself, this is like the biggest failure of this lifetime, is that I haven't treated this person in the way that I should have treated them. And I know that when my life lesson is being reviewed, this is going to be the thing that drives me to my knees in sorrow over the way that I treated this person. And obviously I can try to make those amends, and I will, because even though this person, it doesn't matter whether they're alive or dead, you can still make amends. As a matter of fact, I think you make amends better when they're dead. I hate to say it like that bluntly, but it's just easier because all the human part is out of the way. And once they're out of the human body, then they're back on that soul level. A lot of the stuff that tied them up down here is not even there anymore, and they can see where, like I was saying, during their life review, they can see how they made somebody else feel. And I think we do have major regrets over those sorts of things. So, but at the same time, we also have to love ourselves, and just love the innocence of ourselves, and remember that, we basically all are like little 5-year-olds running around. So we have to be kind to everyone, including ourselves.
Well, the point you were bringing up made this little paragraph jump out at me more, and it made better sense. And it says, this also helps you learn that you don't need anyone to act in a certain way in order to feel the harmony, bliss, and joy that life always provides. And while it makes sense that a partner is the one who supports you the most and offers you all the love you could ever need, the difference between feeling seen or ignored is more so a reflection of how you often love your own heart. And I think some of what you were just saying kind of brings this little paragraph out is a lot of times, like you were saying, we like to try and be the one to fix it for somebody. And ultimately, in the long run, we really can't do the fixing. We can help, hopefully guide or show them or place it in front of them, but it's same thing with others for us. Those that are in our lives and interacting with us can show us how we can maybe better love ourselves and accept ourselves, so that way we can then do what you were just saying, go out and love and treat others with that love and fullness that we really want, and to spread that out. And I think sometimes that we've been loving our own self first is one of the biggest keys of being able to start moving and doing that, and it says it is common to unknowingly ignore the request from your own innocent nature while waiting for a partner to treat you better. And I'm looking at partner, I'm looking at friends, because I don't have a partner, but I have a lot of good close friends, a lot of people that, certain people I go to with certain, it's funny, I have certain friends where I'll go and discuss this type of issue with them because they seem to better guide me in that area. I have another friend that kind of helps me more in this area. So I even have a couple of friends where I kind of got, it kind of, for lack of a way, partitioned out that, okay, I can get this from here. And I think it helps turn around and helps me then look at myself more. So then that way I can maybe say, okay, this is, and I don't say this in my mind, but I think sometimes when I finally reflect a little bit, it's like, okay, this is more of how I need to love myself or deal with myself before I can now push that out there to other people. So then I hopefully can help them grow and help them in turn see themselves in a more loving way. And I think that's, I think that's maybe one aspect of going from other books that we've gone, why we come to Earth as part of and on the journeys that we're on, is to help in those areas, to learn to fully love ourselves, so that way when we connect with God, the universe, whatever, as I always say, I think it's God, then I can really go there in that pure, genuine love and grow and connect better. I don't know. What do you guys think on some of that thought?
Come on, Karen. I see those thoughts rolling around in your head.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was thinking the same thing. I saw those wheels spinning, and it's like, they need to come out. We can't hear you, Karen. You're muted.
Maybe Karen doesn't want to talk today, but the whole
No, it's just that I'm I'm not totally together. I've had a sore throat the last couple of nights, and so I've been kind of staying up when I get up and go to the bathroom. I've been staying up for a while, and I'm finding my mind kind of jumbled. And I'm thinking about people. I think a lot of my life I've been concerned about how I'm treating or not treating people, and not really someone said that you don't really know what the other person is thinking about what you're doing. I've noticed more than ever in the last couple of months that what I think people are thinking is not what they're thinking. I don't know if that makes any sense. Um, I wish I could think of a good example of that. It's interesting when you get older and you look at people and they surprise you that they're not as old as you think they are. I mean, you can tell that they're kind of sitting in a place where they're looking back more at how they've been in their life, and it's actually quite confusing sometimes. Um, I live in a facility where the majority of the people around me are in my age group. We've had people come and sing and do some entertaining and so forth, and we're back in the 60s, and we're singing those songs, and we're talking about the kinds of things that happened during that period of time. And I look around and I think, what are these people doing, thinking about these same things that I am? Knowing the same words to the songs and that kind of thing. Because if you've been a baby boomer in your whole life, you've kind of ridden this wave of being the the group of people that have been baby boomers, for the most part, were kind of like, they were kind of like the people that everyone paid the most attention to, just simply because of numbers. And it's interesting now that there's generations of people that have a totally different view of how life should be, how they should be, whether or not they should be interested in working. It's difficult for many places to find anybody to work there anymore. And I don't know what that necessarily has to do with what we're talking about. But polarity can be tricky because obviously it is tricky, but if you're dealing with people helping you of a different generation, like I realized this one young man that I enjoyed so much coming to my room in the mornings when he would come and bring medicine. He was not just the age of my children, he was the age of my children's children. And if you don't think that's weird, to realize that you're getting along with this person and laughing with this person, and they could be your grandchild, and you're not, it just dawns on you one day. I think I'm going to stop. I can't imagine that you've gained very much from what I've had to say. So next time you'll know better than to call on me. Thank you.
No,
I think we got plenty out of that, Karen. Don't worry.
No, I think you did bring something up, because I think in some ways, I think there is a sense of like polarity that is our singular polarity, but there also can be maybe a consciousness polarity out there, you know, like for, like you say, the baby boomers. I'm a part of the baby boomer. I'm on the very tail end of it, you know, but I'm a part of that generation. And yeah, it's interesting to see where some of what I think and what I believe and how I and seeing some of the differences and how reactionary sometimes I think these two things can get, you know, with the younger generation seeing things through one mindset, and us and the baby boomers have been, like you said, the one that so many things were geared towards for the last 40 years, you know, let's say, because we were the mass generation out there, so things needed to be. But now we're coming up to that, you know, and things are kind of rubbing up against each other, and you know, and you have the one generation reacting to another generation, and it's kind of like a conscious, you know, polarity thing. And even in that, I think there's some clashing and not fully understanding, and sometimes not a willingness to be willing to engage and go from try and put yourself in the other group's thought and where they're coming from. And so with that, you know, I think I get some of what you're saying about that. Go ahead, Lori. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I gotta get my thoughts back about this very thing. Every generation forever has gone through this process, and if we don't go through that painful part of the change is really difficult a lot of times. And where was I going with this is that somehow the masses of us, this whole world is going through massive changes right now, and we just have to be mindful and guide it to where we think is a good, positive thing. And there's nothing wrong with anything the boomers did. In fact, I've kind of got a tagline on some of my social media stuff that I'm a boomer with a millennial mindset, because I agree with all of this, you know, doing stuff to work with the environment and where we have to live, or we're, you know, headed down the path to annihilate ourselves, you know, and encourage this to be like a genocide. And just being mindful of where I'm at and learning to work with the new mindset of the next generation. We have to allow the changes and work with it instead of against it, causing more polarities. I'm not sure how it's all going to be balanced out, but nobody has ever known what the future is. We can only do our best to create what we feel is best for everyone involved. I use the word fix with air quotes the same way you were talking about, Catherine. It seems like fixing it could be one of those things that somebody fixes a race to go in a certain favor, and it may not be the best thing. It's all the motivation behind it.
Yeah, I just put in the chat, it's probably good that we don't really truly know fully the future. Because then, yeah, going back to what you said, there might be the idea to fix it or skew it to go that way rather than letting nature take its course, so to speak, and everything kind of naturally play itself out with, and I think this is a good analogy, with both sides throwing what they have at it, the best and the bad, and the good and the bad both, and just kind of like in when you're arguing with somebody, you're both reacting, but then usually sometimes you have that heated moment, but then somehow, as both sides kind of think about things and think about, oh, I probably shouldn't have said that in the moment or in the heat of the moment or this or that. And going back to, what the book was saying, you slow down, take that deep breath, think, pause or whatever. I think, I think I think it is all intertwined, and, even out in the consciousness out there in the universe, I think sometimes that the universe kind of gets really all up and, going at it. And then it, has to take those moments to step back, pause, and, you know, uh, breathe, so to speak, and then come back together and move forward and let things play out.
Absolutely. And I, for one, am very grateful that our president has taken the further, has taken actions, but thankfully hasn't thrown us into World War III. So I can't imagine the responsibility that rides on his shoulders, and everybody in government making all those decisions and stuff. And God bless all of us on this planet, because we're at a point here, it could go either way. And of course, we all know we're going to be fine whether we're on this planet or not. But I kind of love this planet. It's a beautiful place, and I'd love to hang around. I'd love for my grandchildren to be able to
You keep fading in and out here, Catherine. I don't know if it's my system, your system, or just something in general.
Okay.
Or maybe you were done. But we're at the top of the hour. Any last thoughts from anybody? And we really didn't get into the other part, spiritual codependency. So I don't know if we might want to pick up there a little bit next week, or go ahead and on to chapter 6, or maybe revisit this and then start with chapter 6 next week.
Maybe revisit this last couple sections. I mean, whatever works for everybody is fine with me, but it almost seems like a therapy session for me, or whatever, some parts of it. And I don't want to necessarily go there publicly like this, So I'm just saying, I love this book, I love this group, but we'll see you next time.
Okay. Karen or Catherine, anything from you, either of you?
Well, I think I think we've done a good job this time. on polarity, and we would benefit from the spiritual um, codependency. I think it's interesting, in my experience, more people who are concerned about these issues. I'm so glad that we're getting together about them, and have the reading to guide us to consider other directions. And I do. I go along with Catherine on that part that she talked about, to face a different direction. I can see that I've made some strides to face myself in a direction that's um, a growth direction, and I would have thought that I always would, but I can also see that it's easier to take a stance where um, where you're trying to please and just let that govern you, and it's not it's not the way to grow. Anyway, thank you all for the things that you share, and I love all of you too, and I'm grateful for these Saturday morning masterminds.
Oh, Catherine says perfectly said in the chat, and I agree with her. That was perfectly said. As always, I love you guys. You guys are awesome, and I'll echo the sentiment that Lori said. For me, this is all a little bit like a little bit of therapy too. For me, it helps me to, you know, go in more into me and learn more about me, but also to how I can better grow and put out and give out in love and stuff to other people, and to hopefully have that be where I'm coming from and working from. Although I know I don't do it every day, but that's one of my goals. So, um, are you good, Catherine, or did you have any last little bit?
I'm good. Thanks. Have a great
Yeah.
week, everybody.
Okay, so with that, as always, this has been the Saturday Morning Mastermind. You can find us on Facebook at Mindset Mastery Collective. You can join the group there, and if you want to be a participant on the panel here on the Zoom, just get a hold of any one of us and we can help you out with that. You can also find us on YouTube, on our YouTube channel at Mindset Mastery Collective there. We have replays of all the Zooms. This week we are not live, but we will have this recording. It should be up on our YouTube channel and on Facebook, hopefully sometime tomorrow. And we will be back here. Please like, subscribe, share with other people. And we hope to see you here as we continue on in the book. Whatever Rises, Love That by Matt Kahn. And we'll be probably starting into chapter 6, maybe revisiting the last little bit of chapter 5. And that's it for us for the Saturday Morning Mastermind. See you next week. Bye. Let me stop the recording.